Hi everyone, welcome to After Class,
a podcast by two passionate adult ballerinas about all things adult ballet related.
and some random thoughts in between.
We're so glad you're here.
So grab your water bottle
Or a cup of coffee.
and join us for a quick chat after class. Hi everyone, welcome to another After Class episode. Today we're going to be talking about how to know when you're ready to move up. Hello, Hannah.
Hello. Yeah, this is going to be a good one, I think, because at least for me as a student, this one really resonates with me because I think as adults, it's really hard because no one is necessarily going to tell you what to do. They're not going to tell you, oh, you have to take a beginner class, you have to take an intermediate class. You're just going to walk into a studio and they're going to give you the option to sign up for whatever you want most of the time. And so it's hard to be and they're going to give you the option to sign up for whatever you want most of the time. And so it's hard to be in that position of having to kind of self-assess and figure out what level to take. And then it's really hard, I think, to know when you're ready to move up because I think sometimes we're waiting for this like external validation of like someone to tell you you're ready. But a lot of times in the adult dance world, for me too. So I'm excited to record this one.
It's so much true. Like when we look at it, how many times did we spend talking together whether like, oh, but what do I fit? Do I fit in a beginner's class and an intermediate beginner, a beginner intermediate, beginner advanced? And then you're like, intermediate, advanced
Yeah.
beginner. Which level do we think we are at? And then defining what actually we mean by moving up in our ballet journey, which I think would be the first tip for anyone to think about. You need to start defining what moving up means to you. Yeah, it's progressing through to the next level of the class, like going from the beginner to the intermediate. That's nowadays so unclear for adult dancers. Like even if you're doing the Royal Academy of Dance syllabus and you're doing the intermediate foundation or just intermediate or the advanced, still there is not really a way to establish whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. So another thing could be maybe you just want to start adding point work or pre-point classes to your training. That could be another way to move up. Maybe joining repertoire classes. You've been doing maybe a little bit of my short choreographies on YouTube. Maybe you try variation tutorials by yourself, but you want to go serious and really start doing more repertoire tutorials. So I think that that's the first thing to keep in mind. What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I think moving up can mean a lot of things, like you pointed out, and what moving up means to you is really where you have to start because like you said, for someone moving up doesn't necessarily mean going from a beginner class to an intermediate class. It might mean I'm ready to start my journey towards point. And so moving up a level is more so just adding in pre-point to what you're already doing. So I think, yeah, defining your goals and if you're feeling like you're in a spot where you're ready to take the next step, what is that next step that you're envisioning? And then once you kind of know what that is, how do you get there? What do you do to take that next step?
So let's talk about some signs that tells you whether you're ready to move up or not. One of the most important ones is technical mastery. So what does that mean? It's understanding if you have a solid and good foundations, whether your pliés, your tendus, or your balance are correct. As simple as that. So it isn't that you need to go straight to your double pirouettes. It's just whether the basic steps, the foundation, your body alignment, upright position, a tendu is stretched, your body weight over the toes. Can you balance a tendu? Yeah, simple things like that. Or can you combine that tendu with a coup de pied in a simple combination and feel confident as you're doing it? Is your body and posture exactly what they need to be as you're doing that little combination? That is a great sign whether you can move forward or not.
Because those are all of well, I shouldn't say all because I'm sure there's always something we're missing, but those I think are the main key elements of a really solid foundation. And so if you can do those things most of the time, I think you're in a really good place to be able to move up.
Definitely. Something else to keep in mind that can give you another sign is the strength and endurance. Can you keep up with the ballet class without compromising those foundations, without compromising those basic steps? Do you have the stamina to keep your body alignment while you're doing an entire ballet class?
Yeah, that's a huge one and definitely has been true of my own ballet journey. I mean, I remember there was a point where my calves just like were not sustaining being able to go as full out in a class as I would want to. And I think for me, that was a huge sign of where I was at just overall. It's like the technical part that we just talked about is very important, but there's also the stamina and the endurance part of like the physicality of what we're doing and the athleticism of a class. And I know there's even in my in-person class, like because it's a 1 hour and 30-minute technique class. Sometimes we'll have people that are either coming back from a long break or coming back from an injury or even just beginners, they're brand new, and they'll just come for the bar class and do 45 minutes of bar and then leave because they're not physically ready to do a whole class. And like that's great because I actually think that it's so smart to listen to your body in that way and not push beyond where you're at. But that's a great marker of knowing if you're ready to move up, especially because in a beginner class, obviously everything's at a slightly lower level. And so if you're struggling to maintain stamina to get through a whole beginner class, moving up to an intermediate class, it's only going to get harder with, petit allegro, grande allegro, all that stuff is only going to kind of kick up a notch. So you have to think about just the physical cardio aspect of a class and if you're ready to bump that up to the next level.
Exactly. And I remember how your calves were not being able to keep going with the allegros. Then when we had the point lessons, you were like, I can't really go full on the point lessons, or I'm limiting myself from doing few different steps. So at least I have enough energy to keep up with the entire point lesson. So that was something that you saw as a sign, not just for your ballet class, but for your point class. You knew that until you found a solution for your calves, your point would not progress, which took time, but you didn't rush it. That's fine.
Yeah, because the solution was I needed to build more strength, and that's something that takes time, like, that can't be an overnight thing, I think sometimes what might be holding us back, it's not an injury or it's not an inability to do something, it's just that your body needs more time to develop the strength to do what you're asking it to do, and there's no shame in that, but it definitely does need to be something that you listen to as an indicator of the level that you're in and whether or not you're ready to move up.
Exactly. Another sign that will tell you whether you're ready to move forward or not or move up, it's artistry and musicality. Can you, rather than focus on full technique during the class, can you begin to focus on adding expression, adding a little bit more of the dance and enjoy the breathing and going through all of the movement without just focusing on pure technique? That will be a massive, big flag that we say you can keep moving forward. As soon as you can enjoy the music, the movements, and add more of your personality, then definitely you're ready to move forward.
And I think that it really leads into the next point of signs that you're ready to move up is your ability to retain choreography. Because I think if you haven't gotten to a place where you can retain choreography, it's really hard to be able to incorporate any sort of artistry or épaulement or, just the things that give it that look of really dancing. Because if you're so focused on just having to do the choreography and knowing what the combinations and the counts are, it's really hard to start to incorporate that. And so I think that's a really big indicator and a great way to self-assess is like, am I able to do half of a combination without having to look at the people around me? Can I do the whole combination without having to look at the people around me? Or are you still in a place where you're really having to rely on, whether it's on Zoom, you're having to just constantly look at the camera, or in an in-person class, you're having to look at the person in front of you in order to get through it. So I think that that's a really good way to start kind of keying into where you're at and even starting to kind of test yourself and push yourself of not looking at the people around you or not looking at the camera, because that can just become a habit and something that we do maybe you don't even need to, but you're so used to looking at the camera
Yeah.
or looking at the people around you that it just becomes a habit. And you can start breaking that and testing yourself by intentionally not looking at people around you and see where you're at.
Yep. Me as a teacher, I notice a lot of time when my students, most of them, I would say that a 98.5% of the students that begin some lessons with me, they start with the bar facing the camera. Even the most confident one, I know that they want to make sure that they can follow me most of the time. And it's funny because sometimes we just turn the camera on and there will be super confident with the movements and the bar horizontal. I'm like, now I know that that means you're ready for moving up. And that ties up to the next sign, which is listening to your teacher's feedback. If your teacher said to you, it's time for you to have the bar horizontally, even if you don't feel confident, just listen to your teacher. Teachers, we have the experience and we know when you guys are ready. And we push you a little bit, but we have to challenge you. We cannot keep you comfortable. Otherwise, you won't move up. You won't have that progression on your learning process, right? So listen to your teacher's feedback. Also, something else is actually by your teacher just changing the vocabulary from saying, that's getting better, from that phrase to saying, that badminton deal was good. That body alignment today was good. Your position on the fifth position was better. These are more specific feedbacks that you can start retaining and saying, oh, so that would be the progression of your technique. And that means that you are moving up, you're moving forward.
Yeah, and I think also being mindful of what your teacher isn't saying is sometimes a great way to key in on where you're at. Like I've noticed for me, like there's been times I remember at the beginning of my ballet journey, I was constantly getting feedback about my alignment in my spine and kind of having that duck butt.
Well, be tilted.
The pelvis tilt. Yeah, my pelvis tilted back. And over time, that correction has gone away. And so it's not necessarily that my teachers are constantly telling me, oh, your alignment looks good. It's just that that correction kind of dropped off with time. And I've had other things like that where there was a season where I was getting corrected almost every class on the same thing. And then over time, that correction has dropped off. And so I think also noting the things that your teacher stops giving you corrections on, because a lot of times your teachers have so many things that they're thinking of and looking at. And so a lot of times what they key in on is what needs to be fixed. So you may not get the specific feedback of, oh, that looks really good. You just might stop hearing a certain correction. And
Exactly.
usually that means it's because you fixed it. I wouldn't say that for if you go one class without getting a correction, but if you go a few months and you notice, oh, wow, I really don't get that correction anymore, it's probably because you fixed it. Otherwise, your teacher would still be saying it.
Exactly. Definitely another thing to keep in mind, which is very smart because I know that we do it like we don't say those things anymore. Something to keep in mind is recognizing when you are not ready to move up and accepting that that's okay. You don't need to rush your process. You don't need to get frustrated because you're not moving up. You might need a little bit more time. You might need a little bit more strength. Focus on your goals. You might have forgotten what your goals were, and that's why you're not moving forward because you are so distracted on trying to improve everything rather than going one step at a time. And we need to trust the process that ballet takes time to perfect.
I think some really clear indicators that you're not ready would be if you're still struggling with basic movements or if there's still a lot of inconsistency in your technique. That would be, I think, a sign that you're not ready. If you feel overwhelmed a lot of the times in class and you feel like you're struggling to keep up with the pace of class, I think that's definitely a sign that you're probably not ready to go up to the next level, because as much as, yes, ballet is just hard always, I think that feeling of overwhelm needs to be distinguished from, oh, the class is just hard. Because class can be challenging, but you can still feel a level of calm in it if you're in the right level, but if you're having that kind of anxious, overwhelmed feeling, that's only going to intensify by moving up a level. So it's better to stay in the level you're in, or if it's, if you're feeling extremely overwhelmed still, then maybe even going back down a level until you can be in a place where you're able to feel a little bit more mentally calm in the class and really be able to enjoy the level you're in more before you push yourself into that next level. What else would you say as far as some signs that you're not ready?
I would just say be patient with the process. It takes time. Ballet is an art form that really is not something that you do it today and you get the skill tomorrow. You mentioned something you heard in Catherine Morgan's online lessons, rushing. What is it?
Yeah. She said one time in a video that it takes longer to rush. I just think that's so true because
I love it.
it's so perfect for ballet because if you rush through the fundamentals, it's going to take longer to have to undo bad habits and incorrect technique than it is if you just dedicate the time at the beginning of your journey to really getting a strong foundation. Then your rate of progression is going to be much faster because you have that really solid foundation that you're working off of. So giving yourself the grace and the patience to take a little bit longer and remind yourself that taking a little bit longer now is actually going to be the fastest route to success in the long run.
Exactly. I would say be patient, take your time, and trust the process. That's everything I will actually have to say to this.
Yeah.
Now, we are looking for signs of what are the signs to move up. We also look at the signs we can move up. It's okay, we accept it. So now, then, we just need to start looking into how to prepare for that next level. What do we need to do? I will say 100% sure that everyone will agree with me is ask your teacher for the feedback. Because the reality is, we are the one on the outside looking at you every time we have a ballet class. So ask for those very specific, personalized feedback. Don't be afraid of it. You're paying for that feedback. And it's what is going to help you to move forward. So don't be afraid of asking. Don't be shy. Go to your teacher once every 3 months. Go any ways or areas that I need to improve. I think that would be my first tip for you if you want to create a training program to improve and make sure that you are prepared for that move up.
Yeah. Teacher feedback, I mean, is really the best source. And I mean, this is obviously assuming you have a good teacher and not some like toxic, crazy teacher who's just going to be mean to you and emotionally abuse you. But hopefully none of you are in that situation, although I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are people who unfortunately are. But if you have a good teacher who has your best interests at heart, asking them is going to be a great way of knowing if you're ready. I think one of the sides to progressing that is important to talk about is just like the imposter syndrome part of it, because I think as adult dancers, as people who love ballet, we've talked about this before, I think there tends to be like a very type A personality that really wants everything to be perfect and goes, gives 110% every class. And I think the danger with that personality type can be that we never feel good enough. We never feel like we're worthy of progressing. Like we always just see the things that still need to be worked on. I know that this is a big one for me. I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the podcast yet, but I just signed up for the Catherine Morgan Summer Intensive and I know I'm so excited. I decided to go up a level from when I did it 2 years ago. And like
You go, girl.
I know, but it was hard because there was this side of me that's battling, "Oh, like, are you really there yet? Should you really be doing this?" And I think that that's a big part of it for adults is the mental side of just feeling like, "I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough." But I think the reality is you'll kind of always battle that when you're trying to make that leap into the next thing, and you have to just rely on the facts and the feedback rather than letting your own maybe
Yeah.
lack of confidence dictate
Yeah.
the risks that you're taking or the steps that you're taking in your training. So not listening to that voice of doubt inside of you, but listening to all the other indicators that we've talked about and your teacher and letting that be the sign to step forward. Because I think if you listen to your own internal critic, you'll probably stay stuck for a really long time.
But it's true, like when lots of people said we can be our worst enemies. You have that inner voice that keeps telling you, rather, like everyone does the same, rather than pushing yourself and be like, oh my God, I did so well today. Oh, Yelena, you are so good at this. Just keep going. Who does that? No one does that ever. Rather than just be like, oh my God, that was awesome. I can't wait to keep doing it and keep pushing, Yelena. You can do it. You can do it. No one does that ever.
Especially not ballet dancers.
No. You might do that once. I don't know, right? But just do it. Just push yourself and try to stop that inner voice. And if you don't trust yourself because you keep talking yourself down, then ask for that feedback to your teachers and go from there. And trust them because they are the professional ones and they're the ones seeing you from the outside. Then I will say, to kind of sum up the entire episode, will be moving up doesn't mean perfection. It means that you are ready to tackle new challenges. Ballet is hard and we become with time perfectionist. And believe it or not, there are so many studies done about ballet and perfectionism, so many results about the mental side effect of it. So you don't try to be perfectionist, but you try just to build the strength and the foundation that you need to move up to that next level.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, with it meaning that you're ready, I think it needs to mean that you're ready in multiple ways. Like, I think it needs to mean that you're physically ready, you're emotionally ready, you're mentally ready, because, you might be feeling like, oh, I'm ready to move up, but your body isn't there. Kind of like how we talked about, like with my calves, assessing yourself as a whole. And that when you are thinking about jumping into this next level, that you're really confident that you can do it safely and that you're excited for it and you're not feeling this sense of impending doom or overwhelm, kind of how we were talking about earlier. Like, it shouldn't be, ballet classes are hard, but it shouldn't feel miserable and overwhelming. And so I think that readiness really needs to be reflected even just in how you're feeling about moving up, because ultimately, and at the end of the day, as adult dancers, like, we're doing this for the love of it, for the joy of it. And so don't put yourself in a position to make yourself miserable, especially if you don't have to. Because like we were saying earlier, it's not a race. You're not on any specific timeline. The journey of progressing and moving up is going to look really different for every person, and that's totally okay. So move through it at a rate where you can also enjoy it. I think that's really important.
That it feels natural to you. That next step, that progression needs to feel your moment to move up. Not my moment, anyone else, is you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's a natural moment for you? It's a natural step to take forward? That's it. That's it.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We really hope that this gave you some concrete questions and things to be asking yourself if you're in a season where you're considering moving up to the next level, whatever that means for you. We really hope that this gave you some practical ways of assessing where you're at. So as always, please feel free to email us or reach out to us on social media with feedback about the episode or also requests for future topics. We would love to hear them. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya! Thank you for listening to After Class.
Join the community on YouTube and Instagram, or come dance with us in our weekly Zoom classes for adult ballerinas like you.
Links included in the episode description. Special thank you to our sponsors.
See you next time after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.